In this video, we will learn about equality operators in JavaScript. If you use other languages like Java or C++, you might be surprised by JavaScript's approach to equality. JavaScript has two different equality systems, and understanding the difference between them is crucial for writing correct code. Alright, so let's take a look at the two different kinds of equality operators. One of them is called abstract equality, which uses two equal signs or a exclamation point equal for not equals. This looks seemingly similar to how many other programming languages define equality operators, but there are some interesting differences. So let's start by looking at an example here. So let me run this code, and this all looks as expected, right? Is 2 equal to 2? Yes. Is 1 equal to 2? No. Is 3 not equal to 2? Yes. This all works fine, and it works similar to other programming languages. But now let's see some strange things. So is the string 2 equal to 2? Surprisingly, the answer is yes. Is the number 1 equal to the Boolean value true? Is the number 0 equal to the Boolean value false? Is the empty string equal to the Boolean value false? Is the string 0 equal to the value false? Interestingly, all of these are going to come out as true. So here is where abstract equality gets tricky. When operands are of different types, JavaScript converts them before comparing them, right? This is what's known as type coercion, when you convert one type to another. And so when you have a number and a string on the two sides of the equality operator, it is going to convert the string 2 to the number 2, and then it converts them and it ends up being equal to one another. Okay, so the common wisdom is to avoid using abstract equality. There may be some cases, rare cases, that this might be desired. For example, if you want to check if a value is null or undefined, you can use x equal null. And this will basically work for when x is null or when x is undefined. But other than cases like this, you want to avoid using abstract equality. And instead what you want to do is to use a strict equality. So a bit of a history, like early version of JavaScript, it only had abstract equality. Right, so it was like any other programming languages. It was just using like equal sign, but it was doing type coercion. So this was weird. And when they came to fix it for backward compatibility, they decided that rather than fixing this, we're going to introduce a new notation. So they called this abstract equality, and then they created this triple equal sign, and they called this one a strict equality. Now what a strict equality does is that it behaves the way you expected. It does not do type coercion. So first of all, it works for regular stuff, like 2 is 2, 1 is not 2, 3 is not 2 is correct. So all of these will show the value as you would expect it, like in other programming languages. And then if you see the strange cases that we've seen earlier, when the abstract equality was coming up as true, in all of these cases, the result is going to be false, which is what you would expect, because a string 2 is not the same as the value 2, and number 1 is not the same as true, and so on and so forth. So there's no type conversion or type coercion when you use a strict equality. And so the recommendation is that whenever you want to do comparison, you want to do equality operation, stick to the strict versions of it. Now I also need to make a note about object comparison, because all of these comparisons that I've showed you, these are primitive values. What if you're dealing with objects? So objects are compared by references. So what this means is that if two objects are pointing to the same or storing the same reference variable, two variables pointing to the same object, then they're going to be considered equal. However, if that is not the case, if like what you're interested in to check the actual values, the the properties of the objects, the strict equality or abstract equality are not gonna work there for you. So let's take a look at this example. I have a student named John Doe. I have a course assistant also named John Doe. And then I created a new variable called head assistant, which is taking the same value as course assistant. So what this means is that both variables, head assistant and course assistant, are pointing to the same object in the memory. So now if you go and say, is a student equal, and you're using a strict equality to course assistant, this is going to come out as false. And what it is comparing here is their memory location. If you do head assistant is equal to course assistant, this is going to come true because both of them are pointing to the same object. Right? So this is somewhat consistent with how other programming languages like Java and C++ work. So what if you actually want to compare the values? Well, you would have to write a program, like a function, for yourself to go and compare each of the properties to make sure that they use the same key and the same value. There are a lot of libraries that do this, what is called a deep equal or deep comparison for you. For example, there is a very popular library called Lodash that provides a corpus of utility operation, including things like doing fast deep equal between objects or arrays. So the answer is either implement it yourself or use a third-party library that provides an efficient implementation to performing these kind of operations for you. Now let's explore a few other things when it comes to equality operators. Let's take a look at a special case of null and undefined. This is a bit more chaos in the land of JavaScript, how these things work. So let's take a look at the example. Is undefined same as undefined? Yes. So is null same as null? Yes. Is undefined same as null? If you do a strict equality, the answer is no. But if you do a abstract equality, then the answer is yes. So this is the case, like both of these are basically being converted to the same thing and compared to one another. And that's why if earlier I told you that one of the cases that it is perhaps okay to use abstract equality is here, right? If you want to check if like x is null, because if x is null, well, null is null. But if x is undefined with abstract equality end up being equal to null. All right, let's take a look at another special case. This is the special case for not a number. So remember, not a number is a special value, and it comes up in certain cases, like for example, if you try to perform operations that are not defined, like arithmetic operations that are not defined. So here is the interesting thing. If you try to compare not a number to not a number, whether you use abstract equality or you use a strict equality, in either case, they're not gonna end up being equal to one another. A strange behavior. This is a special case. So how do you make that comparison? Like if you wanted to like write a, let's say, if statement to guard against not a number, well, you can use utility methods. So there is a utility method is nan, that is a static member of the number object with a capital N. You can use that, and this will return to true to you. And there is another special object built into JavaScript. This is a newer addition, and it is literally called object with a capital O. And this has a bunch of utility operations in it. One of them is the is operator that allows you to make comparison between two different things. So like it takes two different parameters, it compares them, and it will return whether these two are the same or not. So these are the options that you have if you want to actually check whether a variable is not a number. All right, so thinking about object is, you might be wondering, all right, okay, how is this, like, it basically just takes two operands, like two arguments. So potentially you can give it anything, like give it two numbers, two strings, like any two things that you want to compare, rather than using a strict equality or abstract equality, you can pass it to object is. And actually this special method, the object is method, behaves in most cases similar to the strict equality, but it is also optimized to handle special cases. So in a way, it is even a safer or a better version of a strict equality. It solves some of the other bugs that a strict equality still didn't solve. However, it's not something that is widely adopted by the community. So you're not going to open up a JavaScript project and see everywhere that you want to have equality operator, people are using object is. In most cases, people are using a strict equality, and that's considered sufficient for most cases. It's mostly about special cases where you may want to use object is. And so let's take a look at some of these special cases. So if you try to compare whether positive 0 is the same as negative 0, well, a strict equality will give this true to you. But if you use object is, it's going to return false to you. Both of them are 0 if you think about it, but well, in some contexts there's a difference in the meaning when you have positive 0 and negative 0. So it might be more important for you, or it might be correct in your context, that don't consider these two as equal. The other one, as we've seen, is like not a number. The object is designed to be a true equivalence relation, which means that it has all the properties of equivalence relation. It's reflexive, symmetrical, and transitive. The strict equality does not satisfy all of these properties. All right, okay, so we've covered JavaScript's equality operators. What you need to take away from this lecture is that you should be using a strict equality in, I want to say, 99% of the cases. There are some exceptions that you may want to use abstract equality because it makes your code shorter or simpler. So rather than, for example, doing two checks to check against null and against undefined, you can just use one check. And then what you need to remember is that there are special cases, like how not a number behaves strangely, or how undefined and null behave strangely. And so in those cases, using object is would be a better option.